across the country, there have been confrontations between protesters, pro-Palestinian protesters, and police. The latest on the campus of UCLA. We have been watching as police have finally moved in, smashing down tents, taking down some of the encampment, and arresting those who were inside. At this hour, we've been watching them move in very quickly. They've been standing there since about 1 o'clock this morning, waiting to push forward after telling the encampment that they were there illegally. The university sending out an alert to students there. The students have been pushing back. We have seen them use, for example, fire extinguishers on police. We have seen them using lights to try to blind the police so that they can't see very well as they're trying to push in on an area that is a little bit smaller than the size of a football field that has been covered with tents and protesters for a week now. I want to give you a view from just minutes ago as police started pushing in, trying to get the pro-Palestinian protester encampments and the protesters out. What you are hearing there are flashbangs or stun grenades that the police are deploying, and you're hearing some of the students who are in that encampment yelling as police in a mass move are trying to what is called kettling, trying to get around this protest to try to make this smaller and smaller and smaller so they are pushed into an area where they can then bring them out, detain them using the zip ties that we've been seeing them use throughout the morning. I want to get to our Camila Bernal. She is on the scene there, front and center, and has been watching this for hours now. Camila, what can you tell us is happening right now?
Hey, Sarah, we're trying to get as close as possible because those police officers are also making progress and moving into the encampment. You see here behind me is all the tents that the police officers were able to push out of the way as they were moving into the encampment. This whole area was part of the encampment, and now what you're seeing is sort of an encirclement by police officers as they continue to fire these flashbangs in the air to try to disperse the crowd. There are definitely a lot more police officers than protesters are at the moment. It's actually hard to see where these protesters are, but they are in a group in the middle of all of these police officers off to the other side. What I think is happening is that they're also getting rid of that barrier that those protesters had set up with some of the plywood and the metal barriers. So you're seeing some police presence off in the back. You're hearing the group of protesters in the middle still chanting and still very much defiant, despite the fact that they are surrounded by law enforcement officers. We have not seen them move in closer in the last couple of minutes, but again, you just never know when these officers move in closer and closer to give these protesters less room. And then you continue to see people being arrested and being detained and being moved out of this area. We also are seeing a bus ready right next to this area to take a lot of these people that are being detained. So as you're seeing now, these police officers are trying to get some of that garbage or some of the things that were in the encampment. They are right now moving in closer and closer. You're seeing that happening at the moment as they move out the tents, as they move out all of the things that these protesters had inside of the encampment. And as they get closer to that group of protesters who are still very much defiant and who are standing in the middle, they are all holding arms, linking arms, and trying to stay in place as you're seeing more and more of these officers bringing all of these tents out of the encampment. So again, it's been a very intense morning with a lot of police activity and a lot of protesters who say they're not leaving, who say they still want to be here. Just moments ago, I was still seeing a Palestinian pro-Palestinian flag being waved in the air. But, take a look at this. They're taking out bicycles, they're taking out blankets, they're taking out all of the tents and sort of pushing them off to the side as officers make progress and move further and further in. But you can clearly see that they have essentially taken over the encampment. The police officers have, as they continue to move further in. I'm trying to get closer to see the group of protesters who are still surrounded by officers. They're all trying to stay in a group, to stay together and stand firm. But, it is essentially impossible with the amount of law enforcement officers that you are seeing right now. You hear them shouting, and you do hear police officers telling them to move, and clearly they're not doing so, and they're trying to stand there, but there are not many left in terms of what I'm seeing right in front of me. It's a smaller group of protesters who are trying to hold their ground, but again, police officers continue to move in, guys.
Camila Bernal, thank you so much for that, for setting the scene for us this morning. It will be daybreak there, and we will be able to see the scene much clearer in just a bit here. But you are describing what is going on UCLA's campus. I am standing out in front of Columbia University, which is really the epicenter of where these campus protests began a couple of weeks ago. That one on UCLA, we are seeing some serious police action there, using stun grenades and all sorts, a manner of things to try and make this a smaller and smaller and smaller encampment until they are going to, what it appears, arrest those who are left. We have seen at least a half dozen arrests just in the past 30 minutes from watching the video there where you're seeing them detain protesters. We also have Ben Camacho, who is on the line, a freelance journalist who was there last night as all of this was starting to go down. You said that you were watching this happen sort of around 5 o'clock. There were police on the scene from several different agencies. And then what? When did you really see the police start to move in? Because for a very long time yesterday, they were on the outskirts of this encampment and they were not moving in. They were just sort of holding a line.
Yeah, that's correct. So I didn't really see much action from the cops up until maybe 1:30 in the morning when LAPD did break through a small part of the barricade on one side of the camp, and then that's when several hundred protesters did surround the couple dozen LAPD officers who did break through the barricade. That's when protesters also did manage to push those officers out of their encampment and seal the barricade back up.
Do you have any sense, Ben, of the numbers of people, if there were any arrests the night before when there was a battle? There has been a lot of criticism that police were not on campus the night before when you had this clash between the pro-Israeli protesters who ended up attacking those on campus that were part of the pro-Palestinian encampment. We did see people getting beaten up. At least one person was beaten and kicked and used pipes on them. And so we saw some violence there. Do you have any sense of where that stands and what some of the complaints have been about what happened prior to the police now going into the encampment and trying to clear it?
No, I wasn't there last night. I've just been following the story online. I just know that, counter protesters did attack the camp, and they tried to defend themselves. But when people arrive with pipes, then and unless you have a pipe or something else, it's kind of hard to defend yourself. So there was bloodshed, and I don't know if anyone has been arrested at this time for that.